As he just stood there, staring at the burnt corpse of the mutant, while his arm was still extended outwards, flabbergasted, he couldn't help but exclaim out loud, "What the fuck? Did that actually happen?" He then goes over and reclaims his glaive that was still smoking from his previous attack, and notices that a few of the ant horns still remained alive. They were huddled together, shivering in fear. When the ant horns noticed his gaze upon them, they turned around and ran for their lives. Ojin then bellows out, "Hey! You little bastards! If you are going to just leave like that, the most decent thing you could do is at least leave your star stones behind." Then out of the blue, Ojin felt some fluctuations going out of control inside his body, which was followed by a notification, "Ding! Your stigma of Lyra has been upgraded to a level 2 star stigma," making his stigma glow and a new star got engraved onto his chest. Ojin's body then started to begin to glow. While he was basking in the feeling of his body becoming more powerful, he just stared down at his hands in disbelief and couldn't help but think inwardly, how was this even be possible? It hasn't even been a single 24 hours and yet, Ojin has leveled up from 1 star to 2 stars. Was it because Black Heaven has stored a massive amount of mana? Still crouched over the mutant's carcass, giggling like a confused madman, he then says, "Fuck it, just gather all the materials and go back home and call it a day." But just then, some people began to approach Ojin from behind. The guys then called out, "Yo bro! Did you by chance or happen to kill this monster just now?" Hearing someone talk, Ojin then turns around to look at the unwelcome guests. As Ojin just stared at these thug-looking guys, they start getting closer towards Ojin, a guy with a comb over and his hands placed behind his back like some grand master. He chuckles with amusement, and with a condescending tone, he says, "Oh wow. Even though it's just an ant horn, it is still a mutant, so it shouldn't be so easy and not just anyone could single-handedly kill it." The blonde-haired guy with his hair tied back, as he strode forwards with a hand in his pocket, he then arches an eyebrow and says, "Both of us are 3-star apostles of the hunting dogs. Nice to meet you." Staying vigilant, Ojin just observes the two, trying to get a read on them and thought, by any means, there shouldn't be 2 high rankers running around in a low-level gate like this, unless they must be here for the mutant. While Ojin observed these two, he thought inwardly, with their looks and demeanor, it would definitely be a crime if they were not here to kill and rob others. As the atmosphere grew cold, the comb-over guy's face became dark and says, "It's not nice for someone to come and steal other people's targets. How are you gonna compensate us?" Ojin just sighs inwardly and thought, "I definitely nailed it on the head. They came here to rob others." As Ojin just stared at the 2 guys in front of him, while they were chuckling to themselves and acting all smug for bullying the weak, and thought, well, I guess it can't be helped at all. He instantly drops down onto his knees and kowtows. With a pitiful face while stuttering he says, "I am sorry. I didn't know that this was your monster." As the 2 guys watched Ojin put on his performance, they were completely caught off guard. They were not expecting Ojin to instantly start groveling before them, which made them both blurt out at the same time, "Huh? What?" As Ojin continues, "I will return all the materials to you." Seeing Ojin almost on the verge of tears, the blonde-haired guy rubs the back of his head and almost felt ashamed. With a stiff smile and an awkward expression he says, "Thank you for, being so understanding." The blonde-haired guy points towards the direction of the mutant and says, "Since this is the case, then let's continue our talk over there." Ojin slowly gets up from the ground, gripping his glaive. Unknown to them, Ojin sneaks up behind them and he swiftly plunged his glaive into the blondie's back, which had completely ran through to the other side, with blood spray out from the center of his chest. Ojin places his head right next to the blondie. With a mocking smile and a sneer he whispers, "You fucking piece of shit. I'm not going to give you anything. In the afterlife, give a tribute to your dead mom." Hearing Ojin's remarks, the blondie coughs out blood once again and died. Startled and in shock, the comb-over guy starts stuttering, "Why you?" In his rage, he charged towards Ojin without a second thought while bellowing, "You crazy bastard!" Ojin just lowers his center of gravity. And when the comb-over slices down with his own glaive, Ojin just sidesteps to the side. Shocked from Ojin's swift and sudden movements, he yells, "This is impossible. How are you so fast? You motherfucker! Did you hide your abilities to lower our guard?" With a murderous glint in his eyes, Ojin says, "Don't make me laugh. Both of you turds are just simply too weak." Ojin then throws his glaive and plunges it into the guy's back, which makes him light up like a Christmas tree, with blue bolts of lightning shooting out from his body, making him squeal out like a pig. With smoke rising into the air from another charred corpse, Ojin just exhales and says, "Phew. Finally some peace and quiet." As he puts his hands on his hips and starts chuckling like a madman again. With a greedy smirk he says, "Well, I guess it is time to finish up and start looting." As he starts pillaging through the bodies, he suddenly came to a realization. He looked over at the dead blonde guy and thought, come to think of it, Black Heaven is able to absorb the mana from stigmas of dead people and could grow even stronger, right? As he was deep in thought, thinking of the consequences of what could happen if he were to go down that route. Because if Vega were to find out about it, all hell would break loose and a catastrophic event would take place, and his ass would be at the center of it all. But just then he thought, fuck it. Isn't that the reason for his other ability, Black Curtain, to prove cover and hide Black Heaven's abilities? As Ojin had finally made up his decision, he places his left hand onto the dude's chest and thought, alrighty then, what would be the worst that could happen? Just then, black smog started to leak out and the stigma began to light up and little sparks start to envelop around Ojin's hand. He then receives multiple notifications. Ding! Black Heaven has begun to absorb the mana from the hunting dog's stigma. Ding! The conditions have been met for the second awakening. Ding! Black Heaven has begun its second awakening. Ojin then groans out in pain. The blue lightning starts to envelop around Ojin's body, while the black smog started to wrap around him and begun slithering up towards his head. As his eyes begun to glow bright blue, Ojin was screaming out in pain and unable to keep his mouth closed. The black smog started to seep into his eyes, ears and mouth. But while Ojin was screaming out in pain, he was unaware and unable to notice, but he received multiple notifications. Ding! Due to awakening, Black Heaven will now begin to read through some records contained in the stigma of Lyra. Ding! The stage of awakening is too low, the amount of records to be seen are restricted. Ding! Loading the records of Awakener Li Xinhyuk has begun. As the memories started reeling through Ojin's mind, he saw a man standing before him and asking, "Are you awake?" Coming to, Ojin just had only one thought, "Where am I?" Which was followed by another voice, a familiar voice, "Where am I? A hospital ward? How long have I been out for?" It was Xinhyuk's voice that he is hearing, making him realize he was seeing his memories once again. Just then he heard Xinhyuk's brother, Woohyuk, replies by saying, "You are currently in the hospital. You have been in a coma for about 2 weeks now." With no expression on his face, Xinhyuk says, "For 2 weeks?" Woohyuk just closes his eyes with a disgruntled expression and says, "Xinhyuk, why did you go into a gate on your own again?" With a downcast expression, Xinhyuk says, "I'm sorry. I believed everything would be just fine because it was only a low-level 1-star gate." While the room went completely silent, someone knocked on the door twice. As the door opens, a girl with big circled framed glasses, with a high-tied ponytail that had a secretary vibe, came walking in through the door and asks, "Guildmaster, do you happen to have any free time right now?" Woohyuk then asks, "Why? What's wrong?" As she walks forwards and says while making some hand gestures, "Apparently, Chunhyun has found a star relic from that 1-star gate." Woohyuk then says, "What? Changhyuk found a relic?" The secretary then replies by saying, "Yes," but the way he explained the story seemed a little strange. Just then, out of nowhere the memories started to blur, until it completed fizzed out. With a loud and audible gasp, Ojin instantly sits up and was completely drenched in sweat and starts cursing. "God damn it. Why the hell does his memories keep flooding into my head?" Just then Ojin receives multiple notifications. Ding! You has successfully awakened part of Li Xinhyuk's inheritance. Ding! Spearmanship of Pixis level has increased from level 4 to level 5. Ding! A new skill has been acquired, lame excuse level 2. After looking at all the notifications and panting, he couldn't help but exclaim out loud, "What the fuck?" And then he came to the sudden realization, every time he awakens, the more memories he will unlock? And what the fuck is this skill? Lame excuse. But just then, he started to remember, according to Shinhyuk's memories, so on the 15th day of Mokdong, a new gate will appear that will have a star relic. Star relics are artifacts that is concentrated power from the star constellations, and with them, they can help make up the difference between 1 to 2 stars. As Ojin thought about this with his hand on his chin and mumbled, so roughly in about 8 days from now, a gate will appear in Mokdong, which will contain a star relic. With a shit-eating grin, he thought, "God damn. Now this information is what you call real regressor shit." With a devious smile, Ojin looks up towards the sky and says, "Moreover, and very soon, this information will definitely become more useful to me." As the scene changes, Ojin arrives at a massive office building. When he walked inside and noticed that he came at a decent time, because it was not too busy and it even had a counter that was open. After he arrived at the counter and handed all his star stones to the attendant, looking bored as fuck, the lady then said, "At the market prices right now, we can purchase your star stone for $1,440 and after deductions, you will receive a total of $1,152. With a disgusted expression plastered on his face like he ate shit and says, "Fuck." Which startled the attendant, she asks with an uneasy tone, "What?" Realizing his mistake, Ojin just says, "Sorry, just ignore me. I was talking to myself." While inwardly, he imagined some middle-aged old dude, with knee-high socks, in short shorts, sliding across a soccer field while making an O face, and he could not help but think, that is practically like 20% tax. That is fucking daylight robbery. He just sighs deeply and thought, I guess I have no other choice but to accept this farce. As he takes a seat while waiting for his number to be called, with his head resting on his hands, he then hears someone call out, "Ticket number 57. Please come to the front desk," he just said in a lazy manner, "Okay." Once he arrived at the front counter, the lady then asks Ojin for his celestial affiliation, which he replies lazily once again and says, "Lyra." And as if a bomb has went off in the attendant's head, she bellows out, "What?" Not able to believe what she just heard, she just starts stuttering with a stupefied expression and says, "Why wait? Could you explain that to me once again, please? Which celestial are you affiliated with again?" With a bored and agitated expression in tone, he says, "It's Lyra," and then pronounced it more slowly, Ly-Ra. Completely dumbstruck, her mind went blank and her mouth stuck agape with her body frozen stiff. Getting annoyed of standing around, Ojin calls out once again, "Excuse me. Can you check me out please?" Making her come out of her daze, she blurts out, "Ah. Yes, yes," as she was about to scurry off. Someone came walking up from behind Ojin and asks, "Hey sir? Could you please come with me?" Ojin could only sigh in his heart because he didn't want to raise a big commotion. But who was he kidding? Everyone would be freaked out to see an apostle of the North Star. As he turned around and looked at the man behind him and thought, maybe it would have been better to have hid my affiliations to avoid all these troubles. But then again that would have been a foolish move. Because with strength and fame, it comes with power and authority. The man then leads him to a VIP room and waits for someone to come and get him. The minute he walks through the door, he sees a guy lounging around, with his feet kicked up on top of the coffee table like a prick. It was a man with blonde hair, with his arms draped over the back of the couch while maintaining a thug-like aura around him. With one look the man then asks, "What the hell are you looking at?" As Ojin looks at him, the man clicks his tongue. With his slanted and crooked eyes, he gazes back at Ojin and says, "Are you an idiot? Lower your fucking eyes. Who do you think you are glaring at?" Frowning, Ojin just sneers and thought, who the fucking hell is this bastard?